The massive diplomatic station Harmony Sphere hung like a jeweled pendant against the backdrop of stars. Inside, the grand chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from 12 alien species arranged themselves according to their peculiar needs. Some floated in anti-gravity fields, others lounged in chemical baths while the crystalline brightens reflected prismatic light across the curved ceiling. Admiral Kim stood tall at the entrance, her dark uniform a stark contrast to the colorful alien diplomats. She took a deep breath, shoulders square, face revealing nothing of her thoughts as she led the small human delegation forward. "The humans have arrived," announced the Sphere Master, voice translated simultaneously into 12 different communication formats. Eyes, sensory stalks, and perception fields all turned toward the newcomers. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. "They're smaller than I expected," whispered a blue-skinned diplomat to his neighbor, not realizing human hearing could pick up the comment. Admiral Kim pretended not to notice. She had expected this, the dismissive glances, the barely concealed contempt. Humanity was the newest arrival to galactic politics, and their unexpected victories against concordant expansion forces had earned them fear but little respect. "We thank the Galactic Concordat for this opportunity," Kim said, her voice steady and clear. "Earth hopes these talks will establish lasting peace." The Brighton representative, a crystalline being nearly 3 meters tall, shifted positions to create what passed for laughter in their species, a tinkling sound like breaking glass. "Peace? After you destroyed our outposts in the Rigel sector? Curious definition of peace, Admiral." Kim smiled thinly. "We destroyed military installations that were positioned to attack our colonies. We call that self-defense." Officer Park stood slightly behind Kim, seemingly just an aide but watching everything with sharp eyes. His hand moved occasionally, making notes on a small device. Several alien diplomats noticed this behavior with suspicion, but none could. See what he was writing? The Sphere Master, a neutral party from an ancient species, raised 6 tentacles for silence. "These accusations are precisely why we gather. The Concordat has agreed to discuss territorial boundaries and non-aggression pacts." The humans were shown to their designated area, a simple platform clearly designed without much thought for human comfort. Kim nodded to her team and they took their positions without complaint. As the formal introductions began, the Mist Collective representative drifted closer to the Brighton leader. Through a private communication channel, they exchanged words no human was meant to hear. "How long must we maintain this charade?" asked the Mist being. "Until Fleet Commander Han positions the final battle group behind Jupiter's moon. 3 more days should suffice. And these humans suspect nothing. They are clever for primitives but limited. They cannot comprehend the scale of what comes for them. Unknown to them, a tiny device planted beneath their communication console captured every word." Back on the human ship orbiting nearby, technicians were already translating and analyzing. The first day of negotiations proceeded with tedious formality. Each species presented their grievances against humanity. Resources taken from disputed territories, defensive stations built too close to established trade routes, human encryption, preventing proper monitoring of their communications. Kim listened, patiently, occasionally offering measured responses or clarifications. To the gathered aliens, she appeared diplomatic but somewhat out of her depth in the complex arena of galactic politics. When the session ended, the human delegation returned to their assigned quarters aboard the Harmony Sphere. Only when security sweeps confirmed no listening devices did Kim's professional mask slip. "They're planning something big," she said, pacing the small room. Every concession they offered was meaningless, designed to expire before implementation. Officer Park nodded, displaying his notes on the main screen. "Their body language or equivalent shows clear signs of deception across all species. They're stalling." Another team member, Lee, handed Kim a data pad. "We intercepted communications between their ships. They're moving forces into position while we talk. They never intended peace." Kim wasn't surprised. Humans had learned quickly that in the vastness of space, words meant little without leverage. The Concordat saw Earth as an upstart, a problem to be solved through superior firepower rather than diplomacy. Continue as planned, Kim ordered. Be respectful, appear slightly naive. Let them think their deception is working. As the humans spoke, a maintenance drone, reprogrammed by human technicians days before, silently moved through restricted sections of the Harmony sphere, mapping layouts and copying data from poorly secured networks. Back in the diplomatic chamber, the Concordat leaders congratulated themselves on how easily they were manipulating the humans. None suspected that this peace summit was not proceeding according to their plan, but according to humanity's. Admiral Kim stood by the viewing port watching distant stars, one of which was Sol, home to Earth. Her expression softened momentarily with the weight of what was coming. These talks would end, not with peace, but with a shocking revelation that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The second day of peace talks began with the Brighton representative presenting their species' territorial demands, voice echoing through the grand chamber as holographic star maps illuminated the space between them. As you can see, Admiral Kim, the human expansion into the Tau Ceti region violates established boundaries that predate your species' first radio signals, the crystalline being stated, facets glimmering under the artificial light. Kim listened, with respectful attention, hands folded calmly before her. When the Brighton finished, everyone expected a defensive response or perhaps a human plea for compromise. Instead, Kim smiled slightly. I appreciate your detailed presentation, Representative. However, your claim on Tau Ceti appears to conflict with the Durhan-Vex Treaty of 2189, your agreement with the Mist Collective that explicitly designated that region as neutral territory. A ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. The Brighton's crystalline form clouded momentarily, their species equivalent of a shocked expression. That treaty was classified, the Mist Collective representative interjected, vapor tendrils swirling agitatedly. How could Earth possibly, we, make it our business to understand our galactic neighbors? Kim replied simply. Just as we understand that the Gren Confederacy and the Brightons have been engaged in a shadow war over mineral rights in the Proxima system for the past 30 years, despite public alliance. The Gren representative, a stocky, four-armed being, leapt up. That is absurd! Who told you such? The same sources that informed us about the incident at Nova Station, Officer Park said quietly from his position behind Kim. It was the first time he had spoken during formal proceedings. Tragic business. Over 8,000 casualties if our information is correct. The chamber erupted into chaos. The Nova Station disaster had officially been attributed to an asteroid collision. Only 5 species knew the truth, that it had been deliberately destroyed to cover up evidence of illegal weapons development. The Sphere Master's amplified voice finally restored order. These allegations are not relevant to the current negotiations. On the contrary, Kim replied, understanding the complex relationships between Concordat members helps us navigate these talks more effectively. During the midday recess, the alien representatives huddled in private chambers, security protocols at maximum. How do they know these things? Demanded the Gren leader. The Nova Station information was contained to the highest levels of our governments. The Brighton flickered anxiously. More concerning, how much else do they know? Meanwhile, in the human delegation's quarters, Officer Park uploaded new data from the maintenance drones. Their security systems are impressive, but they never expected anyone to use our methods. Too dependent on technology, not enough attention to old-fashioned human observation. Kim nodded, studying the information. Any update from Earth? Defense fleets are on alert but maintaining normal patrol patterns, nothing to tip our hand. When talks resumed, the atmosphere had shifted. The alien representatives watched the humans more carefully now, their earlier dismissiveness replaced by wary calculation. The afternoon session focused on technological exchange proposals, typically a one-sided affair where advanced species outlined what limited innovations they might share with humans. The Mist Collective representative began describing a rudimentary atmospheric processor they might provide to press a gesture of goodwill. Technology humans had independently developed decades earlier. Kim let them finish before responding. That's a generous offer. Perhaps in exchange, your scientists might be interested in our recent breakthroughs in quantum entanglement communication. I understand the lag in your current systems has caused significant military coordination problems in the Omega sector. The misty form rippled violently, equivalent to a gasp. This was classified information about their recent defeat by a rival, Power. Kim continued as if she hadn't noticed their reaction. Or we could discuss gravitational microfocusing. Our engineers have some interesting theories about how the Brightonies created their famous city of floating mountains. By day's end, the mood in the chamber had transformed completely. Several species requested private consultations with their homeworlds. Others watched the humans with new intensity. As the human delegation departed for their quarters, a small reptilian aide from the Gren delegation slipped something to Officer Park, a gesture captured by surveillance but too quick to interrupt. In their secure room, Park unfolded a simple paper note, beautifully archaic technology that bypassed all electronic monitoring. Not all Concordat members support what is coming. Some of us seek true peace. Beware the third day. That night, Admiral Kim stood alone by the viewport again, watching distant stars. Behind her, Officer Park entered silently. They're frightened now, Park said quietly. Kim nodded. And frightened opponents make mistakes. Their coalition isn't as unified as they pretend. The fleet movements we detected, continuing as planned. They still believe their deception is working. They don't realize we've been gathering intelligence on the Concordat for decades. Park hesitated. Some of them suspect now. Tomorrow will be dangerous. Kim turned from the stars, her expression resolute. Tomorrow we start pushing harder. Every species has secrets. We've only revealed that we know some of theirs. By the fifth day, they'll understand what humanity truly brings to this galaxy. Not superior technology or numbers, Park said. No, Kim agreed. Something they never expected from primitive humans. The ability to truly understand our enemies better than they understand themselves. As they spoke, the Concordat leaders were holding emergency sessions, their confidence shaken, wondering what else these unexpected humans might know and how they had discovered it. The grand chamber of the Harmony Sphere felt different on the fifth day. The air recyclers hummed with greater intensity, compensating for the increased respiration of anxious delegates. 14 translation devices buzzed constantly as species consulted with each other in hushed tones before the humans arrived. The Brighton representative's crystalline form shimmered with tension patterns. The Mist Collective representative's vaporous body swirled in tight, controlled patterns rather than its usual expansive state. Even the normally impassive Sphere Master's tentacles coiled more tightly around its ceremonial staff. When Admiral Kim entered with her delegation, the chamber didn't immediately quiet as it had on previous days. Instead, conversations continued with greater urgency until the Sphere Master was forced to emit a subsonic pulse that silenced everyone. Day 5 of peace negotiations between the Galactic Concordat and Earth, the Sphere Master announced formally. Today's agenda includes finalizing territorial boundaries in the Orion Spur and establishing protocols for future diplomatic incidents. Kim took her place at the human station, Officer Park slightly behind her right shoulder as always. She appeared calm, but those watching closely might notice how she kept her weight balanced, ready to move quickly if needed. The Brighton representative began the session, crystal voice ringing through the chamber. Before discussing boundaries, we wish to address concerning reports of human military movements near the Procyon system. Kim raised an eyebrow. Interesting. We have similar concerns about Concordat fleet concentrations near Jupiter. A ripple of discomfort moved through the alien representatives. This was not how the confrontation was supposed to unfold. The Brighton pressed on. Your accusations are baseless. Perhaps if humans better understood galactic protocols. I believe we understand perfectly well, Kim interrupted, her voice still polite but with new steel beneath it. For instance, we understand that this entire peace summit has been a calculated distraction. The chamber fell completely silent. Kim stood slowly. The human delegation is terminating these peace talks. Effective immediately, chaos erupted. The Mist Collective representatives' form expanded violently in alarm. The Gren diplomat pounded a table with all four arms. Others shouted for explanations in a cacophony that overwhelmed the translation systems. The Sphere Master raised all 6 tentacles for order. Admiral Kim, this is highly irregular. You cannot simply... We can and we are, Kim stated firmly. There is no purpose in continuing these negotiations when the Concordat has been acting in bad faith from the beginning. The Brighton leader's crystalline form darkened with anger, internal lights flashing rapidly. Humans truly are as primitive and irrational as we believed. You speak of bad faith while abandoning diplomatic process at the slightest provocation. Kim's expression remained calm, almost eerily so. I speak of bad faith because while we've been discussing peace, your combined fleets have been moving into attack positions around our solar system. She nodded to Officer Park, who activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed detailed positioning of Concordat warships, information that should have been impossible for humans to obtain. This is the current deployment of your forces, Kim continued. 3 battle groups approaching from different vectors, using Jupiter's magnetic field to mask their energy signatures. A clever strategy, though not as clever as you believe. The Mist Collective representative's form contracted to half its normal size, a sign of extreme distress. These are routine exercises. The encrypted orders sent to your fleet commanders suggest otherwise, Park said quietly, changing the display to show communication transcripts. The Brighton's voice became sharp, crystal tones fragmented with anger. You dare spy on private military channels? This violation alone justifies... Justifies what? Kim asked, voice suddenly hard. The annihilation you were planning? The Concordat decided long before these talks that humanity needed to be eliminated, rather than accommodated. These negotiations were never meant to succeed, just to keep us distracted while you positioned your forces. The Sphere Master's tentacles writhed in agitation. These are extremely serious allegations, Admiral. They are not allegations, Kim replied. Officer Park, show them the Proxima Directive. The hologram changed again, displaying an official Concordat document bearing the seals of all 12 member species. Its title was unmistakable: Containment and Reduction of Human Expansion, Final Solution Protocols. Several delegates physically recoiled. Others began urgent private communications with their governments. This document outlines your plans to reduce Earth's population by 90% and place the survivors under direct Concordat control, Kim said evenly. It was approved by your combined leadership 37 days ago, well before you invited us to peace talks. The Brighton representative's crystalline form had clouded completely, a sign of extreme emotional disturbance in their species. How did you obtain this classified document? It's impossible. That's what concerns you? Kim asked, genuine surprise in her voice. Not that you planned genocide, but that we discovered it? She looked around the chamber slowly, making eye contact with each alien representative. The human delegation is departing. We've transmitted evidence of your intentions to Earth. Our defense forces are already responding accordingly. The Sphere Master moved forward. Admiral, please reconsider. If there has been a misunderstanding... There is no misunderstanding, Kim said firmly. The Concordat never wanted peace with humans. You saw us as a threat to be eliminated, not equals to negotiate with. We came prepared to establish genuine coexistence and found only deception. She gestured to her delegation, who began moving toward the exit. Officer Park maintained the holographic display until they reached the door. This isn't over, human, the Brighton called out, crystal voice sharp enough to crack the air. You may have discovered our plans, but you cannot hope to defeat the combined might of the Concordat. Kim paused at the threshold, turning back with an expression that made several delegates instinctively retreat. You still don't understand what you're dealing with, she said quietly, but you will soon enough. As the human delegation exited, leaving stunned silence behind them, the Concordat representatives looked at each other with dawning horror. Their Perfect Trap had been dismantled before it could be sprung, and now they faced an enemy who had been 3 steps ahead of them from the beginning. The human diplomatic vessel undocked from the Harmony sphere with practiced precision. Inside the secure command deck, Admiral Kim's formal demeanor dissolved the moment the airlock seals confirmed separation. She exhaled deeply, shoulders relaxing as she ran a hand through her dark hair. "Transmission from Earth, Admiral," the communications officer announced. "Fleet Command confirms receipt of all intelligence packages. Defense grid is at full alert." Kim nodded, turning to Officer Park, who was already transforming the command deck. His fingers flew across control panels, bringing down the diplomatic pretense literally and figuratively. Wall panels slid away, revealing advanced monitoring equipment. Junior officers who had posed as administrative aides now revealed themselves as intelligence specialists, military strategists, and xenolinguists. "How long before they realize?" Kim asked, watching the main view screen as the Harmony sphere shrank behind them. Park's normally reserved expression shifted to something almost resembling satisfaction. "They're still in emergency session. The Brightons are blaming the Mist Collective for the security breach. 3 minor species are already threatening to withdraw from the Concordat completely." "Show me what we have." The command deck's central holotable illuminated, displaying a complete 3-dimensional map of the Harmony sphere's interior, including restricted areas that no non-Concordat species should have been able to access, much less map. 17 listening devices successfully planted in their private chambers, a young intelligence officer reported. 23 data extraction points established throughout their communication network. And the maintenance drones copied roughly 60% of their secure databases before we had to extract them. Kim circled the holotable slowly. "And our people?" Park pressed a control, and the display shifted to show dozens of human operatives throughout the massive station. Maintenance workers, service staff, minor diplomatic functionaries from other species delegations, all in position and continuing their assignments. None were compromised during our departure. Kim nodded with satisfaction. "Begin Phase 2. The intelligence team moved with practiced efficiency, each member executing their part of a plan years in the making. While the Concordat had seen the peace talks as a delaying tactic, humans had been playing a much deeper game. They never questioned why we agreed to such a small diplomatic delegation," Kim mused, watching the operation unfold. "Just 5 visible humans. Their arrogance made our job almost too easy." Park nodded. "They believed their technology made them untouchable. They never considered that we'd use methods predating space travel." On one screen, a human disguised as a station maintenance worker carefully placed a miniature listening device behind a wall panel near the Brighton private chambers. On another, a human who had spent years surgically altered to appear as a minor member of the Gren species downloaded critical defense codes. "How did the Concordat miss this level of infiltration?" asked a junior officer, watching in amazement. "They think in terms of technological advantage," Kim explained. "They scan for weapons, for advanced devices, for quantifiable threats. They never understood that humans' greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our adaptability." She gestured to another screen showing a human operative who had perfectly assimilated into the station's cultural exchange program. "That's Officer Kang. He's been on the Harmony sphere for 3 years, building his cover as a xenomusicologist. The Brightons actually invited him to their inner sanctum to record their harmonic ceremonies, which gave him access to their most secure communication hub," Park added. The command deck hummed with activity as reports flowed in from human operatives throughout the station and from Earth's Defense Command. The Concordat's battle fleets were adjusting course, clearly confused by the collapse of their carefully orchestrated plan. "They're trying to accelerate their timeline," an analyst reported. "But they're disorganized. The Mist Collective vessels are holding position instead of advancing with the others." Kim smiled slightly. "They're fracturing already. The trust between them was more fragile than they realized." She turned to her senior staff. "For 50 years, we've been told that humans are technological infants compared to the Concordat, that their ships are faster, their weapons more powerful, their defenses impenetrable. And in purely technological terms, they're right." She pointed to the tactical display showing the positioning of Earth's much smaller defense fleet. But they fundamentally misunderstood the nature of conflict. They thought superior technology guaranteed victory. They never studied human history, Park said quietly. Never understood that we've been overcoming technologically superior opponents for thousands of years. Kim nodded. While they were watching our ships and scanning for weapon signatures, we were studying them, learning their languages, their cultures, their conflicts and alliances, identifying their weaknesses not just technologically, but psychologically, understanding what each species fears, what motivates them, what divisions exist between them. The communications officer interrupted. Admiral, we're receiving reports that 3 concordant vessels have opened fire on each other near Jupiter's moon Europa. Kim wasn't surprised. The Gren and the Brightons, their alliance was already strained before this. Now that each suspects the other of leaking information to us. Throughout the command deck, officers watched as the mighty Concordat, unified for centuries in their dominance of the galaxy, began unraveling from within. Suspicion and accusation spread through their ranks faster than any human virus could have. Admiral, Park said quietly, Earth Defense is requesting your authorization to proceed with information package deployment. Kim looked at the tactical display one last time, watching as confusion spread through the Concordat fleet. Then she nodded decisively. Send the authorization. It's time for the final phase. She turned to address her crew. The Concordat believed they were the players and we were the pieces. Today they learned that humans have been playing a different game entirely. As her orders were transmitted to Earth, she added softly, and that understanding your enemy is the most powerful weapon in the universe. 3 days after abandoning the peace talks, the Harmony Sphere remained in chaos. Emergency sessions ran continuously as the Concordat leadership struggled to salvage their collapsing alliance and military strategy. The once unified front had splintered as accusations flew between species, each blaming others for the security breach that had exposed their plans. In the primary conference chamber, the Sphere Master struggled to maintain order as representatives shouted over one another in a dozen different languages. The translation systems lagged, creating a disorienting echo of accusations and denials. Enough. The Brighton representative's crystalline form pulsed with such intensity that several smaller delegates had to shield their sensory organs. This accomplishes nothing. The humans knew our plans somehow. We must unite and accelerate our offensive before they can... A soft chime interrupted the heated debate. Every screen in the chamber suddenly activated, displaying the Earth diplomatic seal. The chamber fell silent as Admiral Kim's face appeared, calm and composed as if she were merely calling to discuss weather patterns rather than interspecies warfare. Representatives of the Galactic Concordat, she began formally. I apologize for the interruption, but I believe you'll want to see this transmission. The Sphere Master's tentacles writhed anxiously. Admiral Kim, this is most irregular. The diplomatic channels are not to be used after... This isn't diplomacy. Kim interrupted politely. This is clarity. The display split into multiple feeds, each showing a different location. The Concordat representatives fell into stunned silence as they recognized what they were seeing. The first feed showed the secret shipyards orbiting a gas giant in the Sirius system, facilities that officially didn't exist, where the Brightons constructed weapons prohibited by galactic treaties. The second displayed the underground research facility on Proxima b, where the Mist Collective conducted biological experiments on sentient species. More feeds appeared. A mining operation using enslaved members of pre-spaceflight civilizations. A weapons platform disguised as a scientific outpost. A meeting between Concordat military leaders and pirate fleets, they officially condemned, but secretly sponsored. Each location was supposed to be absolutely secure. Each operation was protected by the highest levels of security. Each secret was supposedly known only to a handful of the highest-ranking officials. As you can see, Kim continued calmly, Earth has been gathering information for quite some time. We have similar documentation on approximately 300 additional facilities and operations that violate not only your own Concordat ethical standards, but galactic law. The Mist Collective representative's vaporous form had contracted to its smallest possible size. a sign of extreme distress. This is impossible? Kim suggested. That's what you thought about humans outmaneuvering your military strategy as well. I suggest reconsidering what you believe humans capable of. The Brighton's crystalline form had clouded completely. How dare you threaten the Concordat with blackmail? Kim shook her head slightly. Not blackmail, leverage. There's an important distinction. She leaned closer to the camera, her expression serious but not threatening. For decades, the Concordat has seen humans as primitive warriors. Dangerous but ultimately simple. You respected our fighting ability but dismissed our capacity for subtlety, for strategy, for understanding. The display changed again, showing deployment maps of Concordat ships near Earth. Ships that were now in disarray, some even firing on each other as alliances crumbled. Your plan to eliminate humanity might have worked against the species you thought we were, Kim continued. But while you were studying our weapons, we were studying you, all of you. Your histories, your conflicts, your secrets. Especially, your secrets. Officer Park appeared beside Kim, his quiet presence somehow more unsettling than the Admiral's direct approach. We have a proposition, Park said. A new arrangement that benefits everyone. The diplomatic feed split again, displaying a comprehensive peace treaty, one that recognized human sovereignty and established clear territorial boundaries. Most significantly, it required the Concordat to cease all expansion toward Earth-controlled space. These are our terms, Kim stated firmly. The Concordat will recognize humanity as equals. Our borders will be respected. In exchange, all the information we've gathered remains secure. The Sphere Master's voice trembled slightly. And if we refuse? Kim's expression remained neutral. Then every species in the galaxy receives complete documentation of the Concordat's activities. Your alliance would not survive the revelations. Silence filled the chamber as the implications sank in. Centuries of carefully maintained galactic dominance balanced against exposure of countless violations and atrocities. You have 24 hours to consider, Kim said. We'll await your response. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. The representatives looked at one another, centuries of confidence and superiority shattered in minutes. Back on the human command vessel, Kim turned away from the transmission equipment. Around her, the command crew maintained professional composure, but there was no hiding the tension in the air. Earth had just challenged the most powerful alliance in known space. Will they accept? Asked a young officer. Park shook his head slightly. They have no choice. If that information becomes public, at least 5 member species would immediately withdraw from the Concordat. Their power structure would collapse. And if they decide to attack anyway? Another officer pressed. Their technology is still superior to ours in many ways. Kim walked to the tactical display, studying the positions of Earth's defense fleet. Superior technology doesn't guarantee victory. History is filled with technologically advanced empires defeated by primitive opponents who understood them better than they understood themselves. She looked around at her crew, people who represented humanity's greatest strength. Not their weapons or ships, but their ability to adapt, to understand, to see patterns and connections that others missed. The Concordat made a fundamental error, she said quietly. They studied our weapons, our ships, our tactical doctrines, but they never bothered to understand how humans think. They never realized that while they saw us as simple warriors, we were learning everything about them. 23. Hours later, the Concordat transmitted their response. Full acceptance of Earth's terms. The attempted extermination of humanity was abandoned, replaced by reluctant recognition of a new power in galactic politics. Not a power built on superior technology or overwhelming force, but something the Concordat had never truly encountered before, a species whose greatest weapon was understanding others better than they understood themselves, and the willingness to use that understanding when necessary.